I'm a female and in my mid-20s. When I was travelling through Europe for the month of March, I had the most incredible time. And overall, I felt extremely safe. There was just one encounter. It felt so bizarre and honestly scary. It was around 10 a.m. in a mid-sized city in Germany on a Sunday. I had just checked out of my hotel and I was just walking out the city centre with my backpack. Lots of people around, waiting for the tram and walking. Super safe area. I noticed a woman standing in the middle of the street where the tram tracks were. She was wearing a backpack on her front, but not like a traveller's backpack, a smaller one. She looked maybe early 40s, wasn't dishevelled, looked clean and was dressed appropriately for the weather. But soon after I passed her, I heard her calling out in German and soon realised she was calling out to me. She was clearly not in distress and asking for help. She just wanted to make conversation. And with many folks, I'd be totally down for that. But something about this person was instantly not sitting right with me. I ignored her at first, but she would not stop. As I kept walking, I said, "Sorry, I don't speak German." In hindsight, this was stupid, and later in my trip, I wouldn't have done it. But I was still getting used to all of this. "Oh, you want to speak American," she said. "We can speak American." I ignored her, but soon became aware that she had started following me. I picked up my pace and ducked into a crowded bakery, thinking either she wouldn't see, or at least I'd be around other people in a contained space. I ordered, but before I even sat, I saw her come in and order something too. I was pretty freaked out at this point. I sat down and put in my earbuds and opened a book, not actually listening or reading anything, but hoping it would keep her from talking to me. She came over and sat at my table. I tried to ignore her, but again, she was relentless, waving at me and smiling. I don't know how to describe her smile. It was just really forced and unnatural, like she was putting on some kind of act. I asked what she needed, and she told me that she'd seen me walking and thought I looked like I needed some compassion. I told her no, I was good and everything was fine, but thank you. Trying to be as polite as possible, while still making my disinterest clear. She just kept smiling at me and asked if I had money and a place to stay. I told her yes and that I was fine. She started talking about various things, people she'd met on trains, dance classes, etc. Her English was not great, so I didn't really understand a lot of it. These were all completely random topics. The really strange thing though, is that I didn't get the impression that she had any mental illness or any kind of neurodivergence that would explain a conversation like this. It felt like she was trying to think of ways just to keep talking to me. Like, at times, I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to come up with something, anything else to say. This went on for probably 5 minutes. Finally, she offered to move to her own table. I said, yeah, that would be great if you could. She sat at the one closest to me, and even then, she tried to get my attention and talk to me. She finally sort of stopped, but still kept looking back at me and pulling out her smartphone to text someone. She never once touched the massive slice of cake that she'd bought at this bakery. There was this one man, a fellow customer sitting nearby, who looked sympathetic to me and kept glancing over like he was suspicious of what this woman was doing and what was going on. But I don't think he spoke English, so he couldn't really understand. And it's not like I could have explained it to him, as I don't speak German. My heart was racing, finally deciding I needed to get out of here. I kept checking Google Maps to see when the next tram would arrive. There was a stop almost right outside, and once it was just a minute away. I slipped out of the bakery while the woman was looking down at her phone, and I ran onto the tram. I watched the doors the whole time to make sure she didn't follow me on, and didn't stop looking behind me until I was safe at the train station. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this, and I don't know what to make of it. I met tons of outgoing people in Europe, people much more direct and sociable than Americans, but no one else ever made me feel the way this woman did. Something about the whole situation. Following me, buying something that she never ate just so she could come into the bakery, looking back at me and texting someone, just felt off. I believe I have pretty good instincts when it comes to people, and this person just didn't feel right from the beginning. I can't help but be afraid that she saw me with my backpack, quite obviously a tourist, and was planning on doing something to this naive and vulnerable American. I guess I'll never know, but I'm curious to hear if any of you have ideas, or if I'm totally misreading a harmless situation. I was a 20-year-old college student. My friend and I were living and working near her college for the summer. A guy she worked with invited us to a party at his place. The two of us went, along with 3 other friends. Turned out that we were the only females at the party. There were at least twice as many guys there. So after some drinking and playing a few games, people started to leave. A large group of guys was invited to another party and left to go there. Then our 3 other friends decided to go too. It was down to the host, my roommate, and 2 other guys. For some reason, we decided to go to another party. I had a few drinks, but not enough that I was seriously impaired. My roommate, though, was pretty tipsy. She was walking with her friend from work, and the other 2 guys who had been talking to me at the party were walking close to me and just chatting with me. So at one point, my friend and her co-worker were walking far enough from us to be out of earshot. The 2 guys told me that they knew of a shortcut and tried to get me to follow them down a dark alley. I told them I wanted to stick with the group. They tried to persist for a few minutes, but I was adamant that I was not going to be separated from my roommate. Somehow, mysteriously, we never found the party. The details are a bit fuzzy, but I think they couldn't find the exact location. This was the mid-1990s, so no one had a cell phone to call or text or to confirm a location. My roommate told her co-worker she wanted to walk around and find another party because she wasn't ready to go home just yet. There were lots of people out, and often you would run into someone who would invite you somewhere. I told her I just wanted to go home. I was desperate to get away from those guys. My roommate was feeling good and just not having it. The 2 guys started to whisper to one another, but I was able to hear some of what they were saying. One said, "No, you didn't hear what she said. They live with 4 guys." This was true. We had 4 male roommates, which at some point had come up in conversation earlier. This immediately set off more alarm bells. I continued to argue with my friend, and eventually she realised we weren't going to find another party. The 2 creepy guys left. On the way home, I told them I wanted to leave because those guys were scaring me, and I told her why. If this were to happen now, I would have called those guys out in front of everyone and just made a scene. This last story is actually something that happened to myself back when I was 18, and I thought I should share it with you guys. 3 friends and I had just graduated high school and were going off to celebrate with Schoolies Week. For those of you who aren't Australian, Schoolies Week is a huge celebration for Year 12 graduates where you party, relax, meet new people and have a really great time. The most popular destination for Schoolies Week is the Gold Coast in Queensland. However, we decided to go to a different spot and just avoid all the crowds. There was myself, I had just turned 18, another friend who was also 18, and 2 other friends who were 17. Anyway, we didn't go to Queensland. We decided to stay at a much more relaxing kind of area. So my friend, she knew a guy who had a accommodation hotel room area that we didn't even have to pay for. So we're like, yeah, cool, we'll stay there and we'll go to the beach and just hang out there for the week. Went to the shops, got our groceries, filled our fridge up with food and everything, got some other stuff, and just pretty much had a really good time. We spent the week hanging out in the pool and basically just being teenagers, going out to the beach and shopping. Being young and single, I thought it'd be a good idea if we went out to meet some guys. My other friend agreed with me as she was also single, so we decided to get dressed up and go out and get some dinner. Now, after dinner, we'd left and were driving around trying to find something fun to do when we stopped at these traffic lights. As we're sitting at the traffic lights, a car pulls up beside us. I had my window down, and as we've looked over, we've noticed that it's a group of guys who are around the same age as us. One of the guys in the car puts down his window, calls over to me, asks me my name and what we're all doing for the night. We told them that we weren't from the area and we were just looking for something fun to do. And they said that they had a nice place to go to if we wanted to go and hang out with them. And we said yes. So they asked us to follow them in their car, and we did. What's the worst that could happen, right? All right, so we're following them, and then they start to take us up these different windy roads, and we're thinking, okay, what's happening here? Then they pull into this car park, and it was actually a car park at a beach. So we've jumped out and thought, cool, we'll go hang it on the beach. Still thinking, no, this is fine. There's 3 of them and there's 4 of us, so we'll be okay. Now, I just want to say how dark it was here at the beach. It was very, very dark. So we're walking up this footpath, only guided by the light of the moon. I'd say we'd been hanging out there for maybe 15 minutes, just talking to them, getting to know each other, sort of, finding out where each other's from, what area, if they were local kind of thing. And then all of a sudden they go really quiet and they start to whisper between themselves. Then one of them looks over to us and says, oh, hey, we just need to go grab something out of the car and we'll be back. So they've started walking up the other side of the beach, the opposite direction in which we came from. And I think they probably got about 20 metres up the beach. Then they just started to run. And I've thought, okay, they're not interested. They've ditched us. One of my friends then says to us in a really concerned voice that she said we needed to get out of there straight away. We needed to go now. And we're like, okay, but why? She said that when they went quiet and started whispering between themselves, she actually heard one of them say, let's just go and get the club lock out of the car and then we'll come back. For those of you who don't know what a club lock is, maybe it's called something different in your country, but I don't even know if they exist anymore. But basically, it's like this steel bar that you would put in between your steering wheel. Like you could extend it so that it would clamp onto either end of the steering wheel, and then you would lock it with a key. And you'd keep the key on yourself, obviously. So basically what that does is it locks your steering wheel. So if someone breaks into your car, they can't steal it. It's heavy, bloody hurts, I reckon, if you get hit with it. So on the inside, I'm absolutely panicking, thinking that these guys are going to come back and absolutely bash us with this club lock. I didn't know what to do. My friends are just standing there. We're all looking at each other thinking, what should we do? And then all of a sudden, one of the girls yells, run. So they've taken off up the footpath in the dark, up the beach. I'm still standing there with my shoes on. I ended up taking them off just so that I could run faster. So they're probably a few meters ahead of me. And then I noticed that the guys had actually started chasing us. They'd turned around because they'd heard us yell run and seen us start running up the beach from them. So they've turned and they started running after us. Now, let me tell you, I have never, ever ran so fast in my entire life. And I could hear them running behind us and I thought for sure that they were going to catch us. They started yelling out to us to stop and to come back. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to die tonight. Now, by some miracle, we've made it back to the car park, which, by the way, is very dark and very secluded. There's nobody around. So even if we were to scream, no one's going to hear us. So my friend's got into the car. She's unlocked it, opened all the doors so that we could just all run and jump straight in. But I slipped over. I landed on my hip and my leg and ripped my jeans. My friends picked me up and thrown me in the back of the car. We've started up the car, but just as we were leaving, the guys were then jumping into their car. I'm not even kidding. It was so close. We just made it in time before they even jumped in their car. And then they started to follow us. So my friend's driving all around the streets of this beach town. We don't know the area. We didn't have a map. Phones didn't have Google Maps or anything on them back then. So we didn't know where to go. We didn't know where the nearest police station was. So after an hour, they did stop following us. And at that point, we were still too scared to go back to where we were staying in case they were off some side street and they were going to find us and then follow us out to where we were staying. The place that we were staying at was also quite dark and quite secluded. So we probably drove around another 2 or 3 hours before we actually felt safe enough to go back to the accommodation that we were staying at. When we're walking back to our actual room, I'm thinking that any minute now, these guys are going to jump out at us. No doubt they've followed us and we just haven't noticed. But thankfully, we got into our room okay and nothing else happened after that. Now, on that note, I just want to say, don't be like me. Don't go following guys to the beach or any other secluded area just because they're cute. Look after yourself and look after your friends.